Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTG Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is Grixis Pirates. So we did a Rakdos Pirates a couple weeks ago, and we kind of did like a favorable wins Pirates a few weeks ago as well, but we never did like a full-on Grixis Pirates with all of the synergies, all the +1/+1s, and just all the best Pirates. And that is this deck. But of course, before I get into it, make sure to like the video if you like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure you hit the bell right beside the subscription button to know when we upload a video on the channel and when we go live with the stream right here on YouTube. But without further ado, let's get into the Pirates. There are 27 in the actual main board here. We have 4 Rigging Runner, a 1-mana 1/1 Goblin Pirate with first strike, and of course it has Raid. When Rigging Runner enters the battlefield, you get a +1/+1 counter on it if you attacked with a creature this turn. A 1/1 first striker is really nothing to sneeze at, but a 2/2 first striker for 1 is quite good. And of course we have Admiral Beckett Brass, Fell Flagship, and even Vanquishers Banner in the board here to give it a 3/3, 4/4, and even 5/5 pump. So a 5/5 first striker for 1, that's pretty darn good. But moving up the curve to the 2-mana slot, which is the most of the creatures here, we have 4 Zev Skyship Raider, a 2-mana 1/3 legendary creature human pirate with first strike and menace. Again, first strike is not important in this one, but it does have 3 toughness, which is good for us. The menace is more important here for us for Zev than the first strike. But whenever Zev Skyship Raider attacks, create a legendary 2/1 red monkey creature token named Ragavan that's tapped and attacking. Exile that token at the end of combat. So Zev is going to be attacking out for 3 every single turn after the turn she is played. Of course, a Harness Lightning, a Lightning Strike, those kind of things will be able to shut down a Zev rather quickly, but if they don't have that, a menace creature on turn 2 is going to be something that they're going to be having a hard time dealing with. So hopefully on turn 2, we get a Zev out, turn 3 we attack out, then play a Rigging Runner for 1. Sadly, in this situation, Zev is a legendary creature, so he can't play out more than 1 at a time, but that usually means that it is a good removal magnet, so it's going to be coming in and out of the battlefield quite often. Let's move on up here. We have 4 Stormfleet Aerialist. Again, this is another Raid trigger creature, a 2-mana 1/2 human power with flying, and with Raid, of course, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it if we attack with the creature this turn, so a 2/3 flyer for 2 is very good on the curve as well. Getting this out after a turn 3 attack, we can actually get out a Rigging Runner attack on turn 2 after a turn 1 play if we want to get this Rig trigger instead of a Rigging Runner trigger, because flying is sort of important in the matchup right now against all the aggro strategies in the meta. Roundup Red really doesn't have a way to deal with flyers with the exception of Glory Ringer, and of course their Lightning Strikes, Shocks, things like that. But if we do get a Raid trigger on the Stormfleet Aerialist, it's going to have 3 toughness, and meaning they're going to have to use either Lightning Strike or Harness Lightning if they have it. But moving up from the Stormfleet, we have 4 Fathom Fleet Captain, a 2-mana 2/1 human pirate with menace. Again, the menace is super important here for us. Whenever Fathom Fleet Captain attacks, if you control another non-token pirate, you may pay 2 colorless. If you do, create a 2/2 black pirate creature token with menace. A 2/1 with menace on turn 2 is not terrible, but a turn 3 or turn 4 Fathom Fleet getting in for an attack and making a 2/2 with menace is actually quite good for us. It makes our board state really wide. It makes it so if we get out turn over turn for attacks, we may be losing some creatures, we may be losing the Fathom Fleet Captain, but we are making some creatures in their place. And luckily for us, Fathom Fleet Captain is not a legendary creature, so that means we can get out multiples at the same time. I really like the Fathom Fleet Captain in the turn 2, turn 3 slot so that we can get out a number of tokens on the battlefield if we have an open battlefield to get through. And of course, you gotta love the art. Next up, we have 4 Ruin Raider, a 3-mana 3/2 Orc Pirate with Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attacked with a creature this turn, reveal the top card of your library. You may put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. So again, we have 27 creatures in the deck. Ruin Raider's going to come in, grab some creatures from the top of our deck, put it into our hand. At most, we can lose 4 life thanks to Admiral Beckett Brass or a Hostage Taker, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But Ruin Raider's most likely going to grab a 2-mana creature for us that we can then slap down on the battlefield the next turn. A 3/2 body is also decent as well, but really having this out on the battlefield and just having our smaller creatures attack out just to get this Raid trigger is important for us. Again, we want to go as wide as possible, and Ruin Raider helps us do that really quickly. But moving up to the 4-mana slot, we have 3 Hostage Taker, a 4-mana 2/3 human pirate. Of course, when Hostage Taker enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield. You may cast that spell for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast that spell. Hostage Taker is such an annoying card to play against, and in the mid to late game, it can be a total pain in the butt. Some of the best matchups you're going to have against will be a God-Pharaoh's Gift strategy to grab a God-Pharaoh's Gift actually from the battlefield, which is hilarious. Maybe a Glorybringer for a more aggro-heavy strategy, a Heart of Kirin, things like that, that Hostage Taker can take pretty easily, and then we can just recast it either on the same turn or the following turn. Hostage Taker for us is just a great tempo swing, and just a great way to kind of tell our opponent that, hey, their stuff is our stuff. And next up on the creature curve, we have 4 Admiral Beckett Brass, a legendary 4-mana 3/3 human pirate. Other pirates you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, gain gain control of target non-land permanent controlled by a player who was dealt combat damage by 3 or more pirates this turn. So Admiral Beckett Brass is basically going to be a board-wide pump spell for us. It's our lord for the deck. The actual secondary ability of taking control of non-land permanents is actually not going to go off as often as you think. It is going to go off pretty decently, maybe 1 or 2 times in a single match. Since we do have a high creature curve, getting in for 3 creatures is actually not impossible, but it is slightly improbable. So I wouldn't kind of lean on that too much. I would just lean on the +1/+1 because it's a great lord. And of course, just like Carrie Zev, Admiral Beckett Brass is a legendary creature, so we can't get out 2 at the same time. But that is it for creatures, of course. We have 27 in the deck, so we're looking to have a lot in our opening hand and continue to play them out throughout the match. Next up for instant spells, we have 3 Abrade, a 2-mana instant, choose 1. Abrade deals 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. This is basically in here for some light creature removal, and of course killing anything like a Godforsaken Gift strategy, Heart of Kieran, any kind of artifact that we don't like that's on the battlefield. And that's it actually for spells. Let's go to artifacts. We have 3 Fell Flagship, a 3-mana 3/3 vehicle. Pirates you control get +1/+0. Keep in mind we have several pirates in our deck that have first strike, so +1/+0 is actually quite good for us. And whenever Fell Flagship deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. More often than not, Fell Flagship is just going to be a 3-mana board-wide pump spell for our pirates. But if we really want to use the 3/3, we can to get some discard abilities against our opponent. And the last 3 cards in the deck besides lands, we have 3 Vanquishers Banner, a 5-mana artifact. As Vanquishers Banner enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, which will choose pirates. Creature types you control the chosen type get +1/+1, which is great. And whenever we cast a creature spell of the chosen type, draw a card. So once Vanquishers Banner gets out on the battlefield, it's basically game over for our opponent, as we can start casting out creatures over and over again without really having to worry about it, as casting a creature does give us another card into our hand. So in the mid to late game, where we have a lot of mana on the battlefield, we can actually start casting out lots of creatures turn over turn thanks to Vanquishers Banner. But that is all the cards in the main board for game 1. Let's go to the land here. We have 4 mountain, 4 island, and of course 4 swamp. This is a Grixis strategy. We need all 3 of these. Next up, we have 4 Dragon Skull Summit. This is a great buddy land for us, coming in tapped if we don't control a mountain or swamp, but coming in untapped if we control a swamp or a mountain. Let's do that backwards, huh? And then 4 Drowned Catacombs here, same thing, but it taps for blue and black. Then we have 4 Unclaimed Territory. Because we have 27 pirates in the deck, playing an Unclaimed Territory is actually not bad for us, because anything that's not a pirate is an artifact, and if we don't have red mana by then for an Abrade, it's kind of unlikely. But of course, Unclaimed Territory, when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We can tap it to add colorless mana to our mana pool, or add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, which is of course pirate. And that is the full 60. The game 1 game plan is to basically play out as many creatures as we possibly can, turn over turn, get in some attacks as quickly as possible, play an Admiral Beckett Brass, play a Fell Flagship, play a Vanquisher's Banner, make our creatures very, very large, and then just kind of overwhelm our opponent board state with a ton of creatures that are actually doing a lot of good work. But let's say we're up against a heavy removal strategy or a heavy control strategy. What can we do in the sideboard? Let's go to the sideboard real quick. We have 4 Duress here. I think this is going to be one of the cards that you're going to board in probably immediately against a heavy removal strategy or against a control strategy. Duress is a 1-mana sorcery. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. So it's a fantastic way to kind of shut down our opponent in the early game. So having a Duress in the opening hand is going to be probably key to kind of like gaining that momentum, getting that tempo back from our opponent. Next up, we have 4 Kite Sail Freebooter. This is a pirate that's a 2-mana 1/2 flyer. That way, enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. Exile that card until Kite Sail Freebooter leaves the battlefield. So this is a great way to grab either a negate, a great way to grab any kind of a control strategy if they don't have it or they don't want to, or if they can't counter the Kite Sail Freebooter that particular turn. It's a great way to grab a Godforsaken Gift strategy or a refurbish, things like that. And of course, a great way to grab some removal against our board state. Overall, Kite Sail Freebooter is just basically another set of Duresses for us, but it's on a body. Next up in our sideboard, we have 2 Sweltering Suns. This is a 3-mana sorcery, deals 3 damage to each creature, and it has cycling for 3. So Sweltering Suns is kind of an anti-card for what we're wanting to do, but if we're up against a token-based strategy, Sweltering Suns might be something that we want to kind of board in and then kind of like hold up on our creature-based strategy, hold creatures into our hand, then play Sweltering Suns, then get out our creatures, and again, start attacking out as quickly as we can. The mono-white Monument strategy and the mono-white Vampire strategy right now are really popular, and I think Sweltering Suns really needs to be brought in to represent that. Now, Fiery Cannonade can be brought in for replacement for this because it does do 2 damage to every non-pirate on the battlefield, so that is good for us, but I do think having the 3 damage here is actually quite important for some particular matchups, especially a dinosaur matchup or perhaps the vampire matchup if they're pumped up. But yeah, I was definitely between the Sweltering Suns and Firing Cannonade. Next up in the sideboard, we have 2 Rascals Contempt, a 4-mana instant, exile target creature or planeswalker, you gain 2 lives. So we really needed to have this in our sideboard to kind of represent all of the Planeswalkers in the meta, and also the Scarab God, Hazoret, things like that we really need to exile as quickly as possible. And in game 2, if we see them in game 1 and we lose to them, Vraska's Contempt is definitely coming in as a way to deal with them. And the last cards in the sideboard, we have 3 Gonti, Lord of Luxury, a 4-mana 2/3 Aetherborn Rogue. It's a legendary. It's not a pirate, sadly, but it is a rogue, so I think that might count a little bit. It's a Death Toucher, and of course when Gonti, Lord of Luxury, enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library, exile one of them face down, put the rest on the bottom of that library in a random order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it, you may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. So Gonti is a great way to kind of use our opponent's deck against them, and of course block a large body that's coming towards our life points. I am sad that Gonti is not a pirate. That is kind of sucky, but Gonti is still a great card for us and a great inclusion in this sideboard. And that is the full list, guys. On MTG Traders, this is coming to a relatively decent 32 tickets, which I would consider this budget. I think on paper it's about 140, which is not terrible, but not great. But on MTG Traders, it's of course 32 tickets. But again, game 1 game plan, we really want to be getting out creatures as quickly as we can, swinging turn over turn, getting out Ruinrender, filling up our hand, then getting out a Flood Flagship, Admiral Beckett Brass, and Vanquishers Banner to pump our board state, and then again get out for some game-ending damage. And then of course in game 2, we want to make sure that we get the removal of the control and anything that's kind of going up against our creatures out of their hand and into the graveyard, or either underneath a creature like Kite Sail or Gonti, clear the board if we have to with the Sweltering Suns, or exile some cards with Vraska's Contempt. And that is the full 75. Did you like it? Do you hate it? Do you have any suggestions for it? Let me know in the comments below. Would love to hear from you guys. I wanted this kind of be a very heavy creature-based strategy, but of course we can go in many different directions thanks to the Grixis colors, and I would love to hear your take on it as well. But of course, like the video if you like it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video.